Overrun. Most e-bike motors have it, but what is it? How best do you use it? And why is it going to be such a big deal for you Bosch CX Gen 5 motor owners? Overrun is basically written into the software of your motor. So I'm on my white Kato with a Bosch CX motor, and you can see if I take a stab at the pedals, the bike will actually pull me along without any assistance from me. So the amount of overrun varies between motor brands, but the maximum amount they can give is 2 meters of assistance. After that, the bike will stop pushing you forward. And actually, with some motor brands as well, you can adjust exactly how much overrun you get. But the reason it's so important if you're a Bosch Gen 5 CX motor owner is because of this software update called MY25 that is live this July 2025. And if you go to the eMTB Plus mode, brand new, it has the most ferocious and powerful overrun of any bike I've tried, and it can be super useful. The overrun on the eMTB Plus is really useful, but it takes a little bit of getting used to. It's really useful for really steep climbs where maybe you have to stop pedaling occasionally because it's rocky or it's steppy, and the bike will really power you up there. But also for kind of more extreme slow speed maneuvers when you want to lift the front wheel quickly and keep going, it's really useful. And actually, if you listen carefully, you can hear how powerful it is. It almost builds into like a really torquey, powerful state of overrun and then comes off. Still 2 meter assistance, but you should be able to hear it. It's a feature that does take a little bit of getting used to, I've got to say. And I've got this bike set on the most dynamic mode so that in the Bosch Flow app, as soon as you rest your foot on the pedal, the bike is going to want to scrabble away from you. And with that overrun as well, it can really start getting away from you. I'll just pick up the back wheel and push on the pedal, and hopefully you'll hear it and you'll also see that chain ring, what it actually does. Yeah. So why is it there? Well, there's no definite answer to that, but Bosch coined the term extended boost a few years back, and that was with that bit of extra overrun to help riders get up some of the trickiest terrain. But actually some of the earliest brands, their motors would cut off immediately as soon as you stop pedaling, and actually that can feel surprisingly jerky, so having it fade in and out is quite a nice feature of motors. But having too much overrun can be also quite hard when you're riding up sort of problematic climbs where there's a bit of stopping and starting. But actually now a lot of motors have this sort of hill start assist that will stop the bike from rolling backwards. And if you play around with the dynamic mode of the bike, like I said, I've got maximum on this Bosch. As soon as I then put my foot on the pedal, away I go. And that can be great for riding up some of the steepest, hardest climbs. Most higher torque, higher peak power e-motors do have an amount of overrun. However, some of the lower peak power, lower torque motors don't. Like the Bosch SX has very minimal. As I found out trying to ride it up Snowdon, some of the steppy stuff there was much harder, not having the overrun. And also with bikes like this, the full power bike, my white Kato, you can actually adjust it. So, and different modes have different amounts of it as well. So what I found with this new update is that eMTB Plus has this massive amount, whereas actually the Turbo does not. So I've set my eMTB Plus mode to have maximum everything. So it's actually equal to the Turbo mode as far as assistance. It just has extra overrun. So I switch between Turbo and eMTB Plus depending on the climb I'm going up. If I'm finding something particularly tricky or there's a step coming, I'll actually switch into my eMTB Plus mode and it'll pull me up there. Then if I go down to my Tour Plus or Eco, then that takes out a lot of that overrun. So it's much more manageable if I'm riding more mellow climbs. How much overrun you have or actually want starts with what motor brand you have. For me, this CX and even the Avanox motor have really useful overruns. But lighter riders who maybe don't do technical climbs won't need as such severe overrun, I've got to say. But if you do like the techie climbs, it's something that is really good fun, but you have to sort of tweak your riding a little bit. The cadence you ride up climbs and how you time your pedals to make the most of this overrun, but it's something definitely worth experimenting with. Really tight uphill switchbacks are somewhere where I find the powerful overrun can be a little bit tricky to manage sometimes. If you can keep a steady cadence and pedal all the way around here, it's great. But the moment you have to stop, because maybe you misjudge the turn or your balance, the bike's gonna wanna keep surging. And then you can get in this situation where you're then trying to drag the rear brake to sort of calm the bike down. And because you're going uphill, that almost does it too much. And you get in a really jerky situation of pedal, overrun, brake, pedal, overrun, brake. So that's one time where actually sometimes I'll switch it back to turbo. So it really reduces the overrun whilst keeping the same amount of power to pedal through this corner. Overrun is especially useful on technical climbs, which is handy because I have an e-bike challenge climb trail right here and it is severe, as it says. And it's particularly useful when you're dealing with steps or routes, which is what I've got a load of here. And times when you may need a bit of breath, momentarily, you want to catch your breath and the bike will help you surge forward, or when you're risking whacking your pedal into the floor, which is definitely the case here. And sometimes you can use that overrun. If you pedal right up to that step, then get your cranks level, the bike's going to pull you up. You can then judge your pedals, and that's where I find it's quite tricky, and it's a new skill for me to learn. It's something I'm quite experienced at doing downhill, really working on being in the perfect gear so my cadence is right to avoid those tree stumps. But now it's the opposite. I'm trying to learn it going uphill. Obviously the speeds are slower and it's much more difficult to change gear in these sections, but this is where you can really make the most of your big overrun. Overrun can also be used in another way where you kind of just stab at the pedals. Every time you put that pressure in, you're going to get that overrun. So if you keep repeating, you don't even have to revolve your pedals. You're just stabbing at the pedals and that will pull you up a slope. However, I don't think that is the way to do it. I think it's overly harsh on your gears, just doing this stabbing motion, because you're not working harder to be in the right gear. You're just pushing and really pulling that chain as hard as you can. Also, I don't think it's a great mountain bike technique for getting up things. Yes, in theory, you can do it. I don't think it's the best, or, in my opinion, the best looking way of doing it either. A really powerful overrun can help in more extreme situations as well, like this. It's kind of a bit of a punchy trials move that I'm not the best at, I've got to say, and I'm really trying to learn how to use it the best. But when you roll in, and as my back wheel hits this and I let off the power, the rear tyre is just scrabbling at this tree, and it's basically pulling me up and over. Sometimes you have to get on the back brakes. It almost pulls the bike into a wheelie, but it can be really helpful for these really kind of punchy technical sections to give you a real big bunch of power when you can't pedal.